On January 26th, Iran's Revolutionary Guard released footage of a target representing the USS Abraham Lincoln being assaulted by a swarm of drones. Their message was straightforward. We can observe you, we can reach you, and our drone swarms will strike your carriers before your jets ever leave the deck. There's just one problem. The Navy has a new weapon that renders Iran's entire strategy outdated. Let's examine what would actually occur if Iran attempted to turn that propaganda footage into a genuine attack. It would begin at 0600 local time, when 12 contacts ascend from a coastal location near Bandar Abbas and turn southward toward the Strait of Hormuz. Their objective is the USS Abraham Lincoln and its strike group. These are Shahed 136, one-way attack drones. Ukrainians call them mopeds because of the noise, a high-pitched whine from a two-stroke engine that could have come off a leaf blower. That's being generous. Mopeds can at least change direction. Once the Shahed launches, it follows pre-programmed GPS coordinates until it collides with something or exhausts its fuel. There's nothing on board to detect threats, communicate with its operator, or deviate from its heading. Tehran can't recall it, redirect it, or even confirm it's still airborne. It's a lawn dart with a guidance chip you could purchase off Amazon. The E-2D Hawkeye, circling at 25,000 feet, had all 12 contacts before they finished ascending. If you look at the dome on the top of this aircraft, that housing covers the AN/YPY-9 radar, a system that can track objects the size of a dinner plate beyond 400 miles, while processing over 2,000 contacts simultaneously. 12 Shaheds with the radar cross-section of a riding lawnmower flying straight and level at constant altitude registered about as challenging as spotting a bonfire at Burning Man. America invested $260 million in that aircraft, and what it just detected cost Iran about $30,000 apiece. Within 1.2 seconds of detection, every destroyer in the strike group has the same targeting picture. That's the cooperative engagement capability in motion. The Hawkeye spots 12 drones at the edge of the Earth, and before the CIC watch team glances up from their coffee, a destroyer 40 miles away has computed a firing solution. Iran constructed these drones with off-the-shelf GPS. America built a sensor network that transforms a carrier strike group into one giant radar with a dozen trigger fingers. 41 minutes to impact. The commanding officer picks up the handset and issues an order that will cost the Navy millions. Conventional weapons only. He could wrap up this engagement in 15 seconds with what the strike group is actually carrying. He doesn't. Not yet. There's an Iranian Mohajer-6 surveillance drone circling at 12,000 feet to the east, relaying real-time video to a command post near Bandar Abbas. The commanding officer has been monitoring it for 40 minutes. He could eliminate it with a single SM-2 and blind Iranian intelligence completely. Instead, he lets it observe. He wants Tehran to see exactly what they anticipate seeing. Costly American interceptors burning through a limited magazine against cheap disposable drones. He wants them to feel emboldened enough to dispatch more. At 0638, things get compelling. The lead drones cross inside 20 kilometers. If you look at the destroyer's forward deck, the Mark 45 5-inch gun is already trained on bearing. This 127mm weapon fires proximity-fused rounds, shells engineered to detonate near the target and spray shrapnel at 800 meters per second through composite airframes built to withstand rain, not warfare. 3 rounds, 3 Shaheds, come apart in midair. $6,000 well spent. 9 contacts at 15 kilometers aboard one of the destroyers. The Sea Whiz mounts spin up with the sound every sailor knows in their sleep, a rising mechanical whir that signals something is about to have a very bad day. The M61A1 rotary cannon delivers 4,500 rounds of tungsten penetrators per minute into targets that couldn't dodge a kite. 11 seconds, and 4 drones turn to confetti raining into the Gulf. 5 drones remaining at 10 kilometers. Each RIM 116 rolling airframe missile you see launching here cost the price of an average American home to pursue something Iran assembled for less than a used Camry. 5 launches, 5 hits. The infrared seekers barely had to work for it. 94 seconds from first shot to last. 12 drones down. But Iran just learned everything they needed to know, because that surveillance drone at 12,000 feet transmitted every detail back to Tehran. Final tally? $2.5 million in American ordnance to neutralize $360,000 in Iranian drones. $7 of defense for every dollar of offense. Those 5 missiles are gone. The magazine is lighter, and there's no way to replenish missiles unless in port. The commanding officer knows this. He's been watching the surveillance drone too. He could have eliminated it an hour ago. At 0650, 3 coastal launch sites activate simultaneously. 76 drones lift off in staggered groups. Behind them, 20 more hold at low altitude near the coastline. The initial probe revealed exactly what they anticipated. But unknown to the Iranians, the Navy has something concealed in plain sight they never anticipated. At 0651, the Hawkeye paints all 76 contacts converging from 2 directions, 41 from the northeast, 35 from the east, plus those 20 reserves hugging the coastline at 50 meters, just above the waves. An Arleigh Burke-class destroyer like you see here carries 96 vertical launch cells, but those aren't all loaded for air defense. The SM-3s are reserved for ballistic threats, SM-6s embarked for high-value targets, Tomahawks needed for offensive strikes. Maybe 60 interceptors are available for air defense at $2.1 million per shot. That's $126 million in missiles to stop $2.3 million worth of drones. And Iran staged 20 reserves behind the main wave specifically because they've done this arithmetic. Wave 1 empties the magazine. Wave 2 advances unopposed. No amount of creative allocation changes that arithmetic. You exhaust your missiles before Iran exhausts its Shaheeds. Period. Unless the missiles never leave the tubes. At 0720, the commanding officer issued an order that bewildered half of his CIC watch team. Meteor, weapons-free, all sectors. If you look at the destroyer's forward deck, between the VLS cells and the bridge, there's a flat panel array about the size of a commercial refrigerator. No rotating dish, no barrel. It looks like a slab of metal bolted to the deck, just another antenna among dozens on a warship bristling with them. 3 years ago, this system didn't exist. 2 years ago, it was a laboratory prototype that melted its own components after 4 seconds of operation. 1 year ago, it was deployed on this destroyer under a classification level that doesn't even have an official name. This is Project Meteor, the Navy's first operational shipboard high-powered microwave weapon, and Iran is about to become its first real-world test subject. Iranian intelligence analysts reviewed satellite imagery of every American destroyer in the Fifth Fleet. This array was cataloged as a communications upgrade. Classification, non-threatening. That single line in an intelligence report was about to become the most costly mistake in Iranian military history. And it can accomplish something that was impossible until now. At 0735, the northeastern formation enters engagement range at 18 kilometers. 41 contacts in a 25-degree arc. 6 minutes to impact. Meteor fires. But as you can see nothing. In the Mohajer's ground control station near Bandar Abbas, the operator watched his screen in bewilderment. 37 drone feeds had just turned to static simultaneously. No missile warnings, no explosions on the optical feed. The contacts simply vanished. He cycled through frequencies, checked his equipment, then reached for the secure phone. His supervisor would want to see this. What neither of them comprehended was that they were witnessing the future of naval warfare, and Iran was on the wrong side of it. What actually occurred behind that flat panel is where the engineering matters. Thousands of gallium nitride semiconductor elements, a material that wasn't sufficiently advanced for weapons applications a decade ago, generated focused microwave energy and combined it into a single coherent beam steered electronically at the speed of light. Here's the physics that makes Meteor possible and why Iran never saw it coming. Microwave energy at the right frequency doesn't need to burn through armor or punch holes in airframes. It just needs to reach the electronics. A Shaheed's KPS chip operates on milliamps. Meteor delivers amps. The difference between those two numbers is the difference between a drone that flies and a lawn dart that falls. 37 contacts dropped off the Aegis display simultaneously, tumbling out of the sky without burning or exploding, just nosing over and plunging into the Gulf like someone yanked the battery, which is essentially what happened. 4 contacts at the formation's edge are still tracking. They were riding the boundary of Meteor's 30-degree cone, where energy density drops below the threshold needed to fry hardened circuits. The cone's width matters. It determines how much sky the weapon covers per pulse. And these 4 Shaheeds were just outside of it. 6-second recharge cycle. The system draws from the ship's generators, feeding the same electrical bus that runs the radar, the combat systems, and the coffee pot in the CIC. Iran spent decades constructing a strategy around depleting American ammunition. Meteor's ammunition is diesel fuel. The weapon adjusts 15 degrees and catches the 4 stragglers. 1 pulse, 4 debris tracks. Eastern formation now. 35 contacts bearing 090. Meteor orients, fires. 35 drones nose over and drop into the Gulf without so much as a spark. Somehow more humiliating than getting shot down. 15 seconds of engagement time. 76 contacts neutralized. The SM-2 canisters haven't moved. The VLS cells Iran spent decades trying to drain are sitting at 100%. Now, the 20 reserves go to full throttle and descend to low wavetop altitude, 20 feet above the surface. At that height, they vanish into sea clutter. The Hawkeye's radar loses them. The SPY radar can't distinguish them from whitecaps. 20 armed contacts just vanished from every display in the strike group. Meteor needs a targeting track to aim. Without